Okay, Ramblers, let's get rambling.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Dr. Nick.
Some Dumb Guy here, and welcome to episode 25 of Some Dumb Watch, celebrating a quarter of a century of dumb watching, if you can believe it. Feels like only yesterday. Anyway, this is my weekly series chronicling what I watch from my physical media library, as well as any theatrical viewings I happen to attend. Episode 25 will be chronicling the week from March 17th through March 23rd. Stupid calendars. And I got the ball rolling last week a little bit. It's kind of a theme, and I decided that I would continue it on, not necessarily indefinitely, but on at least a fairly semi-regular basis, and that will be theme weeks and kitties. Say hello to Sugar. Here's my cameo from Some Dumb Kitty, the unofficial mascot of the Some Dumb Guy channel. He's always making her little cameo appearances because Daddy starts talking, she starts running. So last week I went and did a fairly prominent, but not as much as I'd like, John Wayne week. Specifically a John Wayne Western week. And I figured what better way to follow that up with, and you probably all know what's coming. We need a Clint Eastwood Western week, and we're starting this one out with Joe Kidd. This one's from Kino Lorber, 1972, color 88 minutes, also starring Robert Duvall and John Saxon. I thought, and I've continued this on, when I'm going to do these theme/marathon weeks or whatever, it may not be consistent. My intent is when I do them to go through films I have not seen before. So all the John Wayne films I featured last week were complete blind buy first time watches. We're doing Clint Eastwood week, and we're going with the exact same premise. So Clint Eastwood Westerns, all first time watches for me. Joe Kidd was a good one. I don't think Robert Duvall reached his acting potential until the 80s. Yeah, I've seen him in his first little brief role in To Kill a Mockingbird. I've seen him in The Godfather. I have now seen him in this, all 70s and before. Kitty in the Scratch Pad. He doesn't strike me as anything special. However, older Robert Duvall, post-1980, let's just say, I adore the man. I love pretty much everything I can think of that I've ever seen him in. Appreciate his acting and the characters he plays every single time. I just don't see anything special beforehand. Joe Kidd I enjoyed. I didn't think it was particularly great, but I know it's a well-known Clint Eastwood title. The storyline was a bit confusing for me towards the latter half of it. I didn't really quite understand certain motivations that were occurring, which I'm not going to go into any kind of details about. But it was a good movie, and it's a good Western, and happy to have it in my library and get it watched. Now, I should have been going through these in the order at which I watched them, so we're going to try to correct that now. This is the first one I watched for Clint Eastwood week. We are looking at The Outlaw Josey Wales. Hopefully these are coming across a little bit better. I turned on some extra lights on either side of me here to try to help smooth the blurry transitions, which apparently isn't really happening. I was hoping I'd get some better focusing action going on here with more light in my living room, but not as much cooperation as we would like. The Outlaw Josey Wales. It's from 1976, 136 minutes. I don't recall there being any prominent cast that jumped out on me on this one. This was a good, solid story, not as revenge. Ooh, disc pop loose. I was expecting a revenge vengeance justice tale, and we really didn't get that out of this. So this really kind of subverted my expectations. The movie starts out with a tragic event, jumps to a montage, and then we're met with a betrayal that should have more significance, but unfortunately the betrayal isn't quite set up and established as well as it should have been, nor is the motivation behind it. And it's never really thoroughly addressed, even the rest of the film afterwards. So that aspect of things kind of disappointed me. But overall, I did enjoy the film. Certain pieces of it looked familiar, like maybe I'd run into it on TV at once or twice in my life. But I don't ever actually remember watching it. So still considering that a first-time watch. For number 3, we have a kitty. Sugar, that's not very flattering for the audience. Can you turn? Thank you. Number 3 is, I guess I would call this my favorite of my Clint Eastwood Western week. We have Two Mules for Sister Sarah. It's an interesting title. Even after watching the film, it is, I don't know how accurate it is. I remember when I bought this, I'm like, why 2 mules? Why not 1? Why not 3? This one starring Clint Eastwood and Shirley MacLaine, whom this might be the first time I've actually ever liked Shirley MacLaine as an actress. And in all fairness, the first time I saw her was in Terms of Endearment. The only time I think maybe I've seen her, and I probably saw that as an 11-year-old boy. Not exactly the kind of introduction you want. Not exactly the kind of movie an 11-year-old boy wants to watch. This one's from 1970, 114 minutes. Oh, sorry. It says 1970 color 114 and then slash 105 minutes. I forgot that there's actually an international version of this one. And I don't know, it doesn't say which of the run times is international and which is domestic. I would have to go back now and see. I think I watched the domestic version, but I don't know which of those run times applies. I'll wait a little while, then possibly revisit and watch the other cut and see what difference it is. I'm kind of curious about that now. I actually forgot that when I started it up. But Shirley MacLaine, I thought she was actually a delightful character for the first 3/4 of the movie, right up until the final act. Without a spoiler alert, there's a certain revealing event that occurs that I think kind of destroyed everything that they built up for her, and I didn't like that part. But she was a whole hoot. I mean, I like this overall, not just for her and for her character portrayal, but this is the first Clint Eastwood film of his earlier career, particularly of his westerns and such, that I felt like he had a defined character, as opposed to everything else I've ever seen in the older westerns, where he's just the strong, silent western cowboy type that has maybe an undisclosed history, doesn't have a whole lot to say about anything. Well, Clint Eastwood's just a pretty darn talkative in this one, and I enjoyed it for that departure, and I thought he did that one really well. So this one's a good one. The audio, I don't know if it's just the Kino Lorber copy or not, but it wasn't even 2.1. This is just a 2-channel, presumably stereo, but it had a very tinny audio quality to it that made me have to crank my volume up, so wasn't too thrilled with the audio quality. Visually, it looked pretty good, though. And that wraps things up for Clint. So we're moving on to make up for last week's faux pas, as you were, and we need to return back to Frank Capra at Columbia, one of, I should say, probably the most popular, famous title from this particular box set I finally got to. And from 1934, clocking in at 105 minutes, it's will be the third Clark Gable title I've ever watched. It Happened One Night, co-starring Claudette Colbert. But this is really just an intimate tale of two people essentially on a road trip. What blows my mind, really, this is only 5 years prior to Gone with the Wind. And it seems to me that they probably did some work to either age Clark Gable up for that film, even though it takes place over the course of many years, or they did something to youngify him or this film and make him look younger. I don't know which, but there seems to be a dramatic change in visual appearance as far as his age goes between these two films. Claudette Colbert I had never seen in anything whatsoever, so I'm tapping my case thinking that's gonna focus. And they don't call me some dumb guy for nothing. There she is. Okay, I went through a very interesting transition with her because I was aware of her popularity, but never actually seen her in anything. Knew her name. I started this movie finding her incredibly unattractive, and I didn't understand the appeal. But she grew on me somehow. I mean, she's got something going with her eyes and this very unusual cheekbone structure that she's kind of an exotic looking beauty, and tiny, petite, and I've seen some other pictures of her. She's definitely got an eyebrow thing going on, and I know during this particular time period, and especially Hollywood, long, very thin eyebrows. Now, not quite so thin in this film, definitely long, but I've seen other pictures of her where these things just went pencil thin and exceptionally long, and that just looked really bizarre, like she was an alien or something. But I enjoyed her character quite a bit. Maybe that helped things along. I don't know. But by the time this film was over, I actually found her quite fetching, which is like, all right, over the course of 105 minutes, I went from, I don't understand why they appeal this lady to like, ooh. That was fun. Theater time. I didn't have a good theater week, but I saw 2 films. Wednesday and Thursday. So we're going to start with my Wednesday show. This was a 12:30 p.m. midday on a Wednesday. There were only a few of us in the theater, as tends to be what I'm used to because of when I go. And that's on purpose. I like a closed, empty theater. We have Black Bag. I have been tempted to rewatch the trailer after seeing this film because I feel misled. I got the impression from the trailer, I've only seen it once, that this was a film about a husband and wife who were either spies or assassins, or some combination of the two, that either got ordered or contracted to each assassinate the other. So think a more serious tone Mr. and Mrs. Smith. We have Michael Fassbender and Cate Blanchett playing the husband and wife in this film, each giving probably the single most lifeless performance I've ever seen each of them give in their respective careers. The dialogue overall is pretty wittily written, I think, which is about the only positive thing I have to say about this film. A more serious Mr. and Mrs. Smith is what I expected, and ultimately what I would have preferred, because this is not what the trailer presented it to be, not even close. In fact, it's not a spy thriller. It's hardly a spy drama. There's really zero overall tension in this film. The tension meter might jump to 1 or 2, one brief moment in the film, and then it's over and it's done. I don't typically have much in the way of expectations going into a film, which is why I often like to go in blindly. But this at least had something from the trailer to expect a story that wasn't there. And overall, I wasn't happy. So I'm not giving this one a recommendation. Next up, the next day for 11:10 a.m. show, we have Opus. Once again, I saw one trailer for this. It's a movie about, or starring John Malkovich, who plays an eccentric pop star who had many hit albums, disappeared from public venue for 30 years, and then all of a sudden announces a new album, invites a bunch of group of media type people in the industry to come to his, I think it's Utah compound, for a sneak preview, a weekend interview session kind of thing, and things ensue. It's got Juliette Lewis is in this film. Again, John Malkovich. Well, starring, butchering pronunciation here, Ayo Edebiri. Nobody of note. She looked vaguely familiar. I looked her up. Don't recognize anything she's ever been in. Don't know. Juliette Lewis is usually pretty watchable, and she's fine in this film. Brief role were Amber Midthunder, whom has been in a few things recently. She starred in the Predator prequel that was on Hulu or whatever a couple years ago as the lead there. She was also the love interest in the recently released Novocaine, which she was a perfectly fine, suitable character in this. I don't think she had a single speaking line. This is also a very strange kind of art housey type film, which one could expect from John Malkovich, although this one seemed rather pointless and drab. It turns into a big cult film with very disappointing results. So, yeah. Hopefully, I don't expect to make it to the theater this week. I've got a lot going on. But, yeah, just... No, thank you. Yeah. That wraps things up for this week. I've got boxes of packages here, so expect an unboxing video to come. That should yield better news than what I revealed, other than, hey, you know what? All my physical stuff, good to decent to awesome experiences. The theatrical stuff, pass on that across the board. Thank you once again for joining me on my little venture here and my rambling sprees. What did you think about what I watched this week? Do you have any recommendations for not only future viewings, but let's say future themed watch weeks? I've got some ideas in mind. Those are only going to take me so far, so feel free. My library is substantial enough. This is only a small percentage. You have any suggestions for a marathon week that I can play with and have some fun with to join? Throw it out there. What have you yourself watched in the last week? Your library? Have you gone to the theater to see anything you like, you dislike, whatever? We like the word box to be filled. It doesn't happen ever. Sometimes we get a few choice comments. It'd be nice to change that. Do your thing. See you next week. Kitty says bye-bye. Sugar, say bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Alan.